In the other room, the nun shows him the letter that they received the other day. Inspector Boyd confirms that it came from the gem thief herself. Then he asks why is she after for the flame of hope, but the nun denies anything like that is here at the temple, so the inspector mentions about the flame of healing. The story goes from hundreds of years ago. After the war between the soldiers and the fairies begins, the nuns invited them to the temple and used the flame of healing to them. It's a miracle that all the soldiers' wounds have been healed in an instant, so the soldiers themselves refer it as the flame of hope from that day forward. Then Shiloh asks if there's any Jumi people around the grotto, but the nun knows nothing of the matter. Moving on, the nun shows the two where the flame of hope is kept, under the watchful eye of a flamekeeper named Reuben. In the meantime, Shiloh excuses himself from the inspector to look for clues if there's a Jumi around the town. He now enters a jewel store and asks a guy there about Jumi people. He learns from him that gem cores from those Jumi are quite precious, and they are sold for a high price, but he won't find any of those here. After that, Shiloh shares a greenball bun with one of the locals he met named Serafina. Then he mentions that he's looking for Jumis because he have friends who are searching for their people. He added that they all have this gem on their chest, and the girl kinda remembers now that she have met a Jumi in this town before. She says he's in the temple, a red-haired man, and she definitely saw a red gem on his chest. After hearing that, the hero excuses himself to the girl so that he could alert the inspector right away about the info. Now at the cliff terrace, Shiloh approaches him while catching his breath first. Then he asks if Reuben is really a Jumi. If it is, the gem thief Sandra may be after your life, he says. Shiloh also mentions about meeting Elizal and Pearl wanting to meet other Jumi like him, but the firekeeper is not even interested on meeting them. It's because a long time ago, they made a city and lived together. Those who could heal became princesses and those who could fight became knights. But only one had the power to shed a tear that could heal wounds, but one day that princess was kidnapped by one of their own. Since then none of them can heal their gems and they no longer trust each other, so they left the bejeweled city. Then a Sproutling comes down running towards them, complaining that it has a searing tummy ache. A nun enters the scene and examines the Sproutling. She then concluded that it is suffering from a popo bug parasite. It's a fatal disease, but in order to remove it the leaf must comes off from the Sproutling. This scares the heck out of the creature, so it attempted to run away from them, but the nun didn't allow it to do that. It turns out, the popo bug is also an item that cures all disease, and the nun mentions about Reuben wanting to heal his lover from petrification. She asks for his assistance to remove it, but the guy is hesitant about doing it. She's now handing him a knife to use for the Sproutling, and yet again he chooses not to cause harm on others. Left with no choice, the nun attempted to do it herself, but Shiloh pushes her on time. The Sproutling takes this chance to run away, and surprisingly, the nun kicks the hero on where he stands. Next, the tragedy comes to the unaware Jumi, as he kneels down while bleeding his robe. It turns out it is Sandra all along disguising as a nun, and warns him not to do anything drastic so that she could not damage his core. The evil thief also demands to shed a tear for her, but Reuben is so scared at the moment and fails doing it. Sandra is disappointed, she says, and forcefully remove the red gem out of his body. Shiloh is just helpless upon witnessing everything, and as the thief finally got the flame of hope, she bids the hero goodbye and left. Unfortunately, Reuben is really in bad shape, uttering his last words of wanting to see Diana for the last time. He fades into nothingness after losing his core, and this shocks the boy. Inspector Boyd comes running after to approach him, and Shiloh informs him that Sandra already stole Reuben's core. Not long after that, the inspector is taking another case alongside with the hero, only this time, the thief will be taking the so-called Blue Eye. He suspects that another Jumi is here, so they plan to split up and gather more info around the area. Meanwhile, a beautiful dancer is angry, and saying she can't stand it anymore with that fish around. But the manager of the lounge says he's the only big spender they got of their establishment. The dancer is adamant that the fish creeps the heck out of her, and then she runs away. That same fish happens to be walking down the hallway, and the hero accidentally bumps into him. But the fish is arrogant, and says he doesn't take help from commoners. The inspector reprimanded the fish of how he bullies the boy, but the fish still thinks that commoners are just unpleasant. Inspector Boyd is just super annoyed from everything he just heard. Continuing on with their investigation, Shiloh asks again the locals if they know any Jumi around town, but the people don't know anything. But the kids are saying that they saw someone suspicious, a man wearing a full armor suit, but no one has seen his face, so maybe he might have blue eyes. Upon going to the harbor, he sees Inspector Boyd is already talking to that man. He whispers on the inspector's ear to relay him the info he just heard, and then Inspector Boyd asks the man if they could see his face. He now takes a closer look underneath his helmet, and the man has a blue eye indeed. He asks him if he is a Jumi, but the man disappoints the inspector by telling he is just a human. He asks if there's any incident lately. Inspector Boyd explains that there's a recent murder and the victim was a Jumi. The man also introduces himself as Toma, and he's an Imperial Knight. He added that an Imperial ship sunk 10 days ago carrying 20 elite Imperial Knights, but it's still a mystery to them on why it sunk in Palpota waters. He added, their ships have ventured across the sea countless of times before, without any accidents. Strangely, this is the first time that happened to their ship. Then a penguin fisherman tells them that he might have a way to know about how the ship sunk. They just have to talk to Fish Basket. That guy knows everything that goes on in the ocean. Later, Inspector Boyd walks into the room as he saw the blue gem right before him and confronted the fish if it's really a Jumi core. Fish Basket flatly denies about such a thing, and pretended to be ignorant about Jumis. This angers the inspector while trying to convince the fish that carrying the jewel is very dangerous at the moment. Then Shiloh interrupts them and stops the officer from forcing the guy. The hero explains that a jewel thief named Sandra is after the jewel, and his life might be in danger because of having that. But he still denies their request, for you see, he made a promise not to give it to anyone. He tells a story about one night at a beach, he saw an unconscious fella by the shore. By the time the stranger awakens, the fish explains that he's in his house right now. But he's too weak to move at all, so Fish Basket suggests for him to get some rest for a while. Oddly enough, the fish used to be kind before, as he prepares a meal for the guest. Later, the stranger reveals his name, which is Sappho, and the two have become friends ever since, doing everything together. While fishing, Fish Basket fell into the cliff, and for the first time Sappho breaks a smile and laughs. One day, the boy tells him that there is a sunken treasure to where they are now, but Fish Basket doesn't believe him. But then he still swims underneath, and a glowing light shines bright before him as he sees countless of treasures just like Sappho has told him. It was revealed then also that a Jumi killer was after Sappho and his knight Marina, but tragedy strikes first to his knight mid-journey when they got discovered. The Jumi boy is just overwhelmed with the fish kindness that he can't bear to see that he will get hurt by the Jumi killer because of him. And with that, Sappho pulls out his core right out of his chest that shocks Fish Basket. His final words are, "I want you to have this to protect yourself." The boy is now surrounded with a blue light, and little by little the shine is taking him away. And that is why he can't part with the jewel, because of his promise to him. Then Revanchi approaches the fish and requesting to have the beautiful gem instead. Fish Basket didn't listen to her this time, and the girl still insists to have it. Shiloh intervenes between the two, and in a surprise the girl knocks off the hero from where he stands. Next, the fish got thrown away also, dropping the jewel behind. Finally, the dancer reveals herself before the inspector, and it's Sandra the jewel thief. She ran away after that, and the two chases after her. Now at a dead end, the thief has no other choice but to face them both. She pulls out her knife and attempted to strike the inspector, but Shiloh blocks her attack. Now with a broken weapon, Sandra strikes again using a physical combat, subjugating the boy in the process. Shiloh is about to be stabbed, but good thing Serafina is there and rescued him on time. The thief can't risk of getting caught by more people, so she makes her escape. Watch this next video. See you on the next one.